good now. All right, keying in After Effects 101, take one. This is pretty straightforward. It doesn't really get more simple than this. So I'm just going to drag my footage into my layers and my timeline. I'm going to turn off the light real quick so you can see better. Simple shot, close up, wrinkly green screen background, but generally pretty okay green screen, to be honest. It's never going to be perfect color all around. You can actually see it. It's a little bit vignetted in the corners slightly. Some wrinkles, but otherwise fine. If I zoom in on this, see all this blotchiness right here. Ooh, all that H.264 compression. Disaster. It's going to be all right for this, though. I'm not too worried. So, like I said, the default keying effect in After Effects is called Keylight. It's not the best, but it works most of the time. So in the effects panel, I'm going to go over and type Keylight. There it is, Keylight. I'm going to grab onto it and drag it over and drop it on my layer. And it pops up in the effects panel. If the effects panel doesn't pop up for you, you can always go and get it in Window, Effect, Controls. Also, your effect panel might be hidden up here behind your project. Some annoying that After Effects does sometimes. All right, the Keylight is about as close to a push button solution as it gets. A couple things that we're going to play around with. Screen color, which is the color of our green screen. We're going to click on the eyedropper tool and drop it somewhere on the background. We're going to play around with screen gain, screen balance, and then we're going to play around with some settings in screen matte here. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool in screen color and pick where to put it. Where should I put it? Any guesses? Should I put it here? Should I put it here? Here? Closer, right? That would make sense. I don't care about this. Honestly, like, she doesn't move. I could mask her out right here. And that's a common thing that people do is they will take the pen tool and mask out the subject, get rid of the edges and stuff. It's called a garbage matte. You get rid of the garbage. I'm not going to create a garbage matte for this. Oftentimes, I like to click close to their hair. Click it, boom. Oh, wow. Disappeared. Transparency grid. If you don't see the transparency grid, it's because you don't have it toggled down here, the blue one in the middle, the little checkerboards. If it looks black, it's because you don't toggle it. And actually, it looks pretty good like that. But when I click and see the black, it looks pretty bad, right? This is a good reminder right now not to worry about your key so much until you're compositing it on top of a background. The values that you choose for your key only have to be as good as it looks good and it blends with the background. Your key doesn't need to look good on every single color, solid color of the rainbow. Keying and putting a solid color background behind it is like the most difficult composite that you can do. Busy backgrounds like this checkerboard, if I was compositing her onto the checkerboard, done. Perfect. Looks great, right? Actually, if I play it, you might see a little bit of shimmer of the noise, but that busy background hides the crappy job that I just did. But if nobody notices, it's a job well done, right? So don't stress yourself out trying to make this look good on solid black, solid white, solid red, with clouds behind them. If you're not putting them on that background, then it doesn't matter. So we're going to do keying a little bit in a vacuum, but when we start to talk more about compositing later in the semester, bringing finished pieces in, you're going to want to go back and then finesse your key to really make it look good and fit and composite into the background itself. Okay? So here I have a little bit of noise. And if I hit play, you can see that noise. She's very happy about the noise. Next thing that I like to do in After Effects, and again, there's half dozen different ways to do the same thing in any software. Perhaps you have a pipeline that works better for you, but you're not teaching the class. I'm going to click this drop down right here, View, and I like to go to the Status mode. Status mode is a very aggressive looking mask that shows us the status of the pixels. Are they fully opaque? Are they fully transparent? Are they somewhere in between? The white are 100% opaque, solid, 100% opacity. The black pixels are 0 opacity. And the gray ones are somewhere in between. For this person, she has hair, it's fairly long, you can see the background through it. I want her body to be white. There's no reason that I would want her chest or her nose to be semi-transparent, right? It doesn't make sense for us. I would want the background to be fully transparent, so I would want that to be black, not just splotchy pieces of it. I like to go into this mode first because this gets me in the ballpark. Now I'm going to start to dial in values. I usually like to play around with screen gain first. And be subtle. Don't crank these settings. Be like, oh wow, it looks great. I did 360. Let's see what it looks like now. It's not terrible, but it's not good. It's actually on her hair right there. It's pretty bad. But don't crank these values. We're being subtle. We're being gentle. She's putting herself out there on green screen for us. We don't want to be too hasty. So I'm going to start to up the gain a little bit. And you can see that it cleans up that background. We're trying to cut her out of the background, but not at the expense of the fine detail on her hair, eventually her clothes and stuff like that. So it's a balancing act that you always have to play. Yes, I want to get rid of the background, but no, I don't want to be too harsh that I start to make jagged edges around my subject. This little spot up here on the top right, honestly, I don't care about it at all. Because if it really bothered me, if it does show up in the end, I can just mask it out. If she was moving around her body up there, then it would be a problem, potentially, for some frames. So your values are probably going to be different than mine because it all depends on where you clicked on the background. Next, I'm going to start to play around with screen balance, which is the next setting. Screen balance balances between the fully transparent and the fully opaque. It also looks kind of creepy too. So I know if I crank this to 0, it cleans up my background pretty good, but it makes the hair lose kind of a little bit of fidelity. I think somewhere in here is okay. I didn't really move it at all. Kept it around 50. Now most of her body is white, and most of her hair, that fringe that touches the green screen, is gray. That's kind of what I want, because the hair is semi-transparent. Gray means semi-transparent. Except for that bad spot in the top right of the background, it's almost completely black. This is where I will go now and change my view mode from status to screen matte, which is a much more higher resolution version of the matte. This word matte is typically what's used in film. Masks are what is used in photography. They're essentially the same thing. It's black and white black and white representation of the status of the pixels, their opacity, if they're visible or not. So now that I'm in Screen Matte, I'm going to click on the Screen Matte section and start to play around with the clip white and clip black. Actually, I don't even know if I have to mess around with it at all. It looks pretty good, to be honest. If I crank the clip white sections, you can see that the hair loses its fine detail and kind of gets blotchy and stuff. Maybe it's hard to tell in matte mode. So maybe you want to go out of matte mode. Oops, not to source. Go to final result. Bounce back and forth between Screen Matte and final results and kind of dial in the final result. Toggle the transparency grid on and off. What if I want to try to bring back some of that detail? I can, but it kind of gets a little chunky. See? Doesn't look that great. Most of this is because of the compression of the H.264. Now this just looks very chunky. So maybe I don't want to do that. Somewhere in between. This is about as good as I can get this file, honestly, because of the compression of the MP4. Even though in her original hair, there were many more tiny little strands, I'm never going to get. I will get this highlight on this strand right here, maybe, but I'm never actually going to get the connecting piece that goes back to her hair. So this is just kind of look like it's going to float out here because it's a compressed file. It doesn't have enough color detail. You're never going to get it back unless you manually mask it. So am I happy with this? Yeah, I'm quite proud of it for right now. Feeling good. It's also a little mushy on this side, but it's kind of as good as it's going to get. Let's see what it looks like when she shakes her hair around. So, luckily her hair is fairly flat, so. Pro tip number 2, you only need to have it look as good as the background. That's what we already talked about. Also, you're never going to see it still. Movement is very forgiving, right? So it might not look perfect when you pause it for a couple frames, but it's just a blink of an eye. Maybe you can get away with it. If you don't notice it when it's playing, nobody else is going to notice it. So don't beat yourself up too bad about it. Other thing, don't forget to play. Just because it looks good now, not so much on that strand of hair, but it's tolerable here. Just because it looks good here doesn't mean it's going to look good at 15 seconds on the timeline. Maybe a shadow on the background changes. Maybe, I don't know, if you're using natural light, the sun went behind a cloud, right? The key on the green screen is going to change. Be very aware of watching the entire clip and not just a couple frames or a single frame. Sounds like really obvious things, but you really need to keep it in mind. All right, feeling pretty good about that. What's some other simple things that we can do? Not that I really think we need to do them for this, but we can. Clip rollback, shrink and grow, softness. Clip rollback rolls back the matte a little bit. In this case, it doesn't seem like it's really revealing that much detail, but let's check. Oh, a little bit. In this case, I don't really want to roll it back because it gets rid of more hair. Shrink or grow is pretty self-explanatory. Maybe you could grow it and then roll back a little bit. Nah, disaster. It's a trial and error thing every single time. Each image is different. Screen softness is going to soften the matte. If you soften it, you're going to lose all that nice detail. The hair So you don't really want to do that. Last thing, when using key light, I like to change the replace method from soft color to source. Using hard color or soft color, it gets rid of the green screen cast, but there's a better way to get rid of the spill, in my opinion. See how it brought back the green screen cast when I turned that to source rather than soft color? I like to leave it at source, and then I will go and get another effect called spill suppressor. Advanced spill suppressor, not spill suppressor. We like to do things advanced. Drag it onto my clip. And I change the method from standard to ultra. Clicking it on and off. I don't know, on the projector you can tell, but it gets rid of that green screen cast. I think it looks pretty good for what it is. Good enough in this case. Remember I talked about how we're going to composite. We're going to come back into our compositing software and take our foreground and backgrounds from Unreal and put our video footage in. So when I say key against the background I'm talking about is the background that you make in Unreal and render out and then bring back into this footage. Okay? All that stuff is going to make much more sense when we actually do it with camera movement and stuff. For right now, we're kind of just keying in a black vacuum of space, which is not how you're supposed to composite. So eventually I will have more layers down below, background and a foreground, and then I can go and tweak these values to make her look better. I can also add like highlights to the side of her hair with masks and do all these other fancy compositing tricks that we'll look at in a future class. If I'm happy about this and I want to bring it into Unreal and start designing a world around her, I could export this and bring it into Unreal like we did last week. It's the same thing. Even though it has a keyed out background, I gave you a file with transparency last week and it came right into Unreal. You didn't have to do anything different with the image plate. It's the same workflow. Okay? Let me show you another common thing that's going to happen with you probably. This is another video that's in that same zip file that I gave you. I'm pretty fast through this key just to get to the point. The reason his hair is not completely white here is because his skin is really shiny and he has really short hair, so it's catching a lot of the spill from the green screen. So we have to work around that. Now here's the problem. My guy here decided to have a green pocket square here. Brilliant idea. How do I keep this while also keying out the background? A couple different ways that we could do it. Simplest way would be to just make a copy of the layer, or actually bring in the original footage. So now I have two copies of it, right? One on top, the keyed one, and then the original one. Let me turn off the eyeball on this real quick and get out of mask mode. Just putting it back over top. And then grabbing something like the rectangle or the pen tool. Rectangle works in this case because he doesn't move. And just making a mask. So I have two pieces. The pocket and then the rest of his body. This is incredibly simple, but this sort of technique is how you could build up a composite to key different parts of a person's body even. Maybe I separate somebody's head from their feet. I do this a lot in After Effects, not for real life. But because the key that I do on somebody's hair, especially on full body on a green screen that is not ideal, the light on their feet is going to be quite shadowy compared to the light on their hair. The hair is much more important, to be honest, because it has a lot more detail in it. So I always try to key that more importantly. But I mask out their body into separate pieces so I can key them separately and combine them all back together. Because if you try to do it all in one key, you're going to lose detail because you're really cranking those values to be able to knock out the background and keep the foreground at the same time. Honestly, I don't think that I could keep the pocket without bringing back the background in this case. Oh, I get really close and then it flops. Maybe I could go like that and then bring back the... No, it starts to bring back the fuzz, right? So this is just, I would go in and refine his edges a little bit more. But you get the idea, I think. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah, why don't we do it? Okay. There's this lovely gentleman here. Or actually, I accidentally hit a mouse button and closed him down. No offense. Maybe we'll use her instead then. Oh, it's right here. But no, this one still needs some work. Let's just go with her. This guy's not that lively of a subject, to be honest. Look at him. Don't laugh. This is going to be you, too, standing awkwardly on green screen or in front of the LED wall. What should I do? I don't know. Act. Yeah, let's render her up. So, full disclosure, I want to start using EXRs in this class, but I kind of ran into a little bit of I don't think it's a bug. It might just be a limitation using image plates, using the new image plates or media plates in Unreal and EXR files. It works, but the color profile, there's some sort of mismatch. The color doesn't look good, which is not a big deal if you're just using it in Unreal as reference to kind of line up the background and position, and you're doing the compositing later in post-production anyways. If you're doing a final composite in Unreal, then it's a problem because it doesn't look that great. You'll see what I mean in a second. All right, so let's render this out. Composition, add to render queue. I click the blue button down here. Lossless, it said. I'm going to change this. I'm going to pick OpenEXRs because we're using EXRs starting at this moment. If you don't want to, you can choose whatever other file format you want. Image sequences, though, not video files. Image sequences, it has to be in Unreal, otherwise they will get out of sync. OpenEXR, very important thing. If I just rendered it right now, it would make the background black, not transparent, because I didn't pick RGB plus alpha for the channels. I picked a fancy EXR and I didn't even pick the alpha. So I click the drop down here, RGB plus alpha. It's a similar sort of thing that you have to do if you're using Resolve instead. You have to click the little box that says with alpha or something like that. I think that's it. Okay. I'm going to click the little blue button down here. It says output 2. Choose where to dump this long sequence of files. Let's make my desktop more of a mess. EXRs. EXR1. And render. Output color depth exceeds project color depth. That's fine. What it's saying is that, yo man, you made a project using an MP4 file, which is 8-bit. Your project is 8-bit, but you're using EXRs, which are 32-bit. This seems like overkill. You're right, Mr. After Effects, but I'm working with what I have here. So it's rendering. Big folder of EXRs. It's a little slow, but I do have Unreal open and OBS and Resolve. A lot of stuff going on. All right, it finished. So I'm gonna go over to Unreal. I guess we'll just keep this map open. Doesn't really matter for right now. I have a folder that I made called Media. You don't have to put it in a folder if you don't want to. Just keep it organized. Just like we did last week, the Add button, Media, Image Media Source, IMS, After Effects, sure. Double click it. Click the three dots over here to browse to the file path. Desktop. Click the first one, click open. What's the frame rate of that? 2997? 2997. If you know the frame rate, you can specify it here. If I know, I usually like to specify it rather than letting Unreal figure it out. But that's just because I'm paranoid. Also, if you want to make sure it works, you can click the open button here. Ta-da! Actually, it looks okay there. It's an EXR file. Okay, maybe it won't be a problem. All right, let's drag. Actually, can I just drag this in? Yeah, there we go. Forgot I can do that. The image plates or media plates are fairly new for me too. So I just drag the image media source file directly into my world. There's play buttons. When clicked on it in the details panel, I guess you have to open it first. Oh, it looks fine. It must be my resolve settings were wrong then. Okay, you'll see what I'm talking about. Actually, I could just show you right now. Since I already have this. See how washed out he is? It's like a gamma mismatch or something like that. But this just proved that it is a user error using Resolve. My bad. There she is. Lovely. Question?
Is your most recent export from After Effects, that file called EXRs, is that like under like actually exported to the media file under your Unreal Engine, or is that did you draw it from your desktop?
To answer your question, I am not importing the files. I'm not importing the EXR files into Unreal. That is a bad idea. That's unnecessary. The image media source file just references those files. So those files never get imported. It's not really an issue for this class. It always happens, some people run into this problem where Unreal gives them a warning. It says, hey, your video files are not in this specific video file folder in the project. And it's an issue, but no, they're just on my desktop for right now. Yeah, so what I usually do, at least in Matthew Rader's file extravaganza, I usually have a project folder. Then I have a folder called Unreal that I put all my Unreal crap in, like the projects and stuff. And then I have a raw folder that I'll dump my video files in, or any photographs or anything from the shoot. Then I have like an After Effects folder that I put all my After Effects stuff in, my renders in there, or Resolve if I'm using Resolve. So that's where I would put my EXRs in like another folder. But no, I'm never importing them into the project. If you ever get a pop-up down here that says you just imported a bunch of, or I noticed you brought a bunch of stuff in, do you want to import it? Click no. This can happen if you copy asset files from, if you grab all the asset files, like if you're passing files between different people, you just like zip them up and put them on Google Drive, and then you drag them into your project folder. They'll pop up instantly after you put them in Explorer, but Unreal's going to say, "You want to import all these?" Like, no, I already did. They already popped up. It shouldn't happen, but it could. Any other questions? Same thing as we did last week, right? I didn't even have to do anything with the green screen. You used to have to, 11 months ago, you used to have to go into the material, tell it that it was green screen by taking the alpha from the texture and putting it into the opacity node in the material. But we don't have to do this anymore. It's already done for us. Remember, we looked at this earlier. The default material is already set up. So, same thing, it's just 20 less clicks, which is nice. This is essentially what your assignment is for this week. It's very similar to last week, except I want you to key something out from scratch, okay? Other than that, you're just bringing it into the world. Some of you didn't use keyed out subjects for the last assignment, which is absolutely fine. You have to use a keyed out subject for this one, and you have to key it out yourself. Question? Did you just drag it in? So you brought in a media plate, like a new one without any attachment, and then I'm not entirely sure how to do it like this. You could do it in sequencer, but oh, I think it will work if I just click open. How does it know already then? Oh, well, yeah, down here in a playlist, media source asset, it will give you a list of any image media source files that you have in your project. So if I pick this one, it will open Miley again. But also remember, we don't want to just do this. We want to set up all the sequencer stuff like we did last week, right? Because when we render, the only way it's going to play is if we have it playing in sequencer with the media track. I'm not going to go over that again. You can watch last week's episode about that. Okay? Questions? Feeling good? All right. What do I want to do next? We have 20 minutes. What do you guys want to see? You want to see Resolve doing a similar thing as After Effects, or do you want to see more like world building compositing with the file? No comment. Great. All right, we'll do Resolve then. Wow, you guys are tremendous. Thank you. Really let me down there. All right. What do I want to do? Okay, so you also have these files too. If you want to follow along, I gave you the zip file. It's also a, where's this at? Reveal media source. Actually, I already have, there's a lot of stuff here. There's the mat by itself. It's already keyed. A lot of times when I farm out the green screening, farm it out, have somebody else deal with it, they'll send me just back a mat like this, a black and white tracking mat. All I'd have to do is connect it to the video source and it's already keyed out. It's great. So you have that if you want to play around with it. I also already rendered some EXRs here for you. You can see the color's weird though. But what I want to show you is just this. All right, so he's just taking his phone out of his pocket. This is Resolve. Let me not get ahead of myself. So Resolve, never used it before. It's free. It's made by Blackmagic, the same people that makes that big camera over there, and a lot of other video hardware and software. It is It's an awesome piece of software. It has much better GPU performance than Adobe software does. And it's free. These buttons on the bottom are laid out left to right, kind of as your process that you go through while editing. Start with media, you drag it into kind of your project window, is what you could consider this. Then there's a cut tab. It's basically a simplified version of the timeline where you can quickly cut things together without really worrying about a lot of other effects. Then you go to edit, which is the traditional timeline. The Fusion tab, remember Fusion is the fancy node-based compositing tool. A version of that is built into Resolve, so you can get it by clicking there. Then there's a color tab where you do coloring. There's a Fairlight tab, which is the audio page. And then there's the Deliver page, which is for rendering. So I'm going to kind of get just to the meat of this. Again, this isn't really like a Resolve tutorial class. I just want to show you the power of this software, kind of how so much better it is. It's a live demo, so hopefully I don't crash and burn. All right, I'm going to make a new timeline from this footage, but right-clicking on it, saying new timeline from selected clips. I'm going to change the format of this. This is a 4K clip, so I'm just changing this to 4K. Nothing really that fancy. 30 frames a second. It's not scaling it. It's just keeping the same size. Create. So just create a new timeline. In Premiere, it's called Sequences. Now I'm going to go to the Edit tab. It looks like any timeline that you've ever used in your life. Scroll in and out, middle mouse button. Timeline. Makes sense, right? The simple way to do keying without using Fusion at all is to just take a clip and go to the Color tab, which then gives you this node-based color editing page. And I can click on the eyedropper tool here, which is known as the qualifier. And if I click and hold down and hover anywhere around here, you can see the color values changing down on the bottom. You can see in the little window up top maybe, it looks like he's being keyed out, but inverted. But you don't see it on the main page here. To see it on the main page, I need to click on this little magic wand up here. I'm not sure why it's a magic wand. I guess it's called the highlight tool. Now see, I can really dial it in here. Click on different things. This feature right here is what sold me on using Resolve. I was like, holy shit, I can just drag this around and start adding colors to it and build up a key. That blew my mind. Still blows my mind. You all seem very impressed. It's tough crowd, really tough crowd. Now I could go into here and I could get the eyedropper plus or the minus, take away or add colors. I could feather. I could start to build up a better result. I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to hover this around. Maybe get the table. Oops. Actually, I want it to be minus because my mask's inverted. See? Not giving me a good key there. Oops. Whoops, whoops. Actually, let me invert this map first. So I'm going to click on the key tab here and invert this. Oops, not that, but this. I'm going to go back to the qualifier, drag it around. Now get the eyedropper plus or the qualifier as it's known. Eventually I can't pick up those dots anymore. A lot of these dots are because how noisy the footage was. If I look at it up close, this is 4K footage, but it's still kind of noisy. Can you see the noise right there? Look at that. If I play it, look at that noise. Oh my God. I don't know why I let the DP shoot this at such a high ISO. Disaster. So I can keep building this up. I know this looks crappy right now, but we're going to fix it. You can also just grab the color sliders down here to add more colors. So I don't just have to use the qualifier. Oh, it looks like I got the table too, except for the extreme bottom here. Maybe I can get a little bit more. So I'm not sure which one it is. Well, maybe we just add it. There it goes. See ya. So this hair's looking a little bit rough here, but what if I click on the feather instead of the qualifier? Gets a little bit better. Click. That's a good question. It's everywhere that has the same color, but if you really dialed in here, the only area that has that exact color is right around here, because I'm clicking on bits of the hair and not just the background, which I should have. So this looks a little bit better. It's never going to look as good as it will in Fusion if we have time for that, but it's better than it was in After Effects, and I can keep playing around with it. Try to dial it in. Kind of going very fast here. I want to look around and see if I messed anything up. Uh-oh. That green screen spill is on his sleeve, so it's also putting noise in his sleeve. No, I don't want that. So I have to try to split the difference. And look, I split the difference and I brought back the background. It's tough with any software to be able to do that. So you just have to keep working with it. But in the interest of time, I'm going to show you how to output it. So the gray right now is transparency. If I went to deliver right now, it wouldn't output the alpha. I have to drag this node right here to an alpha output. The blue right there is alpha. I'm saying, does this node have alpha? Right now it doesn't. So if I right click here and go to add alpha output, I can drag this to here. And now when I go back to my edit page, it should be, table's still there, but it should be able to stack the layers now. Let's see if I can. Let's move him out of the way a little bit. No. So there's alpha output. I would want to keep working on that key to do a little bit better job, but the point is that I just did it in Resolve. Not in Fusion yet. I didn't color correct yet. I could still do all of those things. Go to color still. I could add a new node. These are called serial nodes. There's a whole bunch of nodes up here in the color section. I'm going to add a node. So actually, I never go up here. I just use the shortcut Alt-S to add a serial node. I want to keep the chain of the output. Now I'm going to add an effect to this. I'm going to click on the effects window up top here. Actually, where did my effects window go? It's like hidden over here. That's strange. Effects window is supposed to pop up on the right. It's like it's not popping up. Let me just put it on my monitor for a second. See if it's because of the projector. No. That's strange. Wow, I'm really selling this Resolve right now. Well, I was going to add a spill suppressor effect and get rid of that green cast, but for whatever reason that's not popping up right now. I could probably add it from here instead. No, it's a color effect, so I can't add it from there. Nope. Live demo, failing. So now if I was happy with this key, I'm not, because I didn't finish and I didn't do all that other stuff. But the point is that now I want to render out alpha. So I'm going to go to my deliver tab. And render this baby out. Get rid of this clips. Why is he not covered up twice? That's strange. I'm really messing up. Well, he should be doubled there because I doubled him in the effect, but it's not happening for some reason. But anyways, I have all of my export settings here. EXRs. You can't, one downside of a Resolve, no ProRes. You can import ProRes, but you can't export ProRes. Bummer. We use EXRs though, so I could export EXRs. Choose my folder. It's 5. Add the render queue, render. Rendered a lot faster than that MP4. Oh, what? So there they both are now. That's strange. I'm just going to import it back into Resolve to show you rather than bringing it into Unreal. So where's my desktop at? New timeline. I'm just showing you that it's transparent. There it is, rendered out. Good to go. Same thing as what we did in After Effects. Albeit confusing because it's software I've never seen in my life before. Or you may have never seen in your life. Don't think we have the time for the fusion thing, unfortunately. I could show you it already set up though, because I foresaw this problem. If I could find my correct details. Now check this out. When you have some time to spend on something, you can make that look pretty good, right? See, I do know what I'm doing. Didn't look like it. Let me drag this up here and just stack them on top of each other. Just showing you, that's transparent. There's no tricks here. Looks a lot better than, well, I don't have it done in here, but I was going to show you what it looked like in, actually I think I do have it rendered out. Let me import it real quick. Downloads. Here it is. Yeah, that's from After Effects when I did it. Looks like trash. Right? I'll do the same thing here. What do you mean? Oh, sure. Yeah, you can keep doing key lights. It's going to make some things look bad. It's going to make others look better. This is a really good, actually, this is a really good tip. Don't just use one and stop, you know? A lot of people, I think, are looking for push-button solutions where they just click the thing and it's done. No, you might have to cut certain parts of it out and do different effects. You might have to do it multiple times. Yeah, that's fine. One thing that I do sometimes is, I didn't do it in this case, but something that I do sometimes is I will use Keylight to make a really harsh garbage mask around her. This green screen's pretty okay, so it's not that big of a problem. But let's see if I can. I don't even know if I can purposely mess this up. Yeah, I don't think I can purposely mess up. Oh, I know what I'll do. So I'll do this, and then I will basically grow the mat. Get rid of all the edges, because who cares about that stuff, right? So I have like the important green screen, right, where my subject is. Because remember, the green screen over here doesn't matter. The green screen only matters where it touches your person or subject, whatever it is. And then I'll use another key light and do it again. Honestly, this is not any better than just doing one for this file. But if you had this would work for a situation where you had a really bad green screen with a lot of wrinkles around, you know? You could go in and you could mask her out with a pen tool and then do key light. You could use the roto brush and then do key light. There's a lot of different things that we could use. Try the roto brush real quick. Let's see how that works. I'm freestyling now, so I'm gonna probably crash and burn, but we'll see. If you've never used the roto brush before, it's up top here. You need to click into the layer and then you can start painting on it. I need to open up my brushes and make it a little bigger. And you just kind of paint the area that you want to keep. And then it's going to mask it out. Puts this pink line on it. And if you click and hold down on the icon up here, you go to the Refine Edge tool. Increase my brush size a little bit. That crazy video of that person masking out all those things, I doubt they used After Effects, but if they did, this is what they would be doing. So I paint this on the areas that are possibly semi-transparent, her hair, and it goes in and After Effects calculates which much higher contrast. Oop, a little peak right there through her hair. Now I let this run, hit the space bar, hit the space bar. Oh, it's processing, it's just very slow. This will destroy your computer using the roto brush. So slow. And if you ever used the roto brush before, you know that almost always it never sticks. You have to pause it, you have to paint a little bit more. You have to pause it, you have to paint again. I should be changing this right now. That spot on her shoulder is no longer the little triangle of see-through area in her hair. It's now an area that I want to keep 100%. There's also a little peak of green over there now. So I would be pausing this and adjusting the roto brush as we go. You see, now there's green over there. We don't have time for that right now. But this part is processed. If I click on the masks, I can see that she is being cut out. If I go back to my composition up top, you have to do this in layer mode. If I go back to my composition, she's cut out. No key light. So it's just using roto brush, which possibly does a better job in some cases. But hey, use them in combination, right? If I just put I know it's time to go, but if I just put a spill suppressor on this, is that good enough right there? If I scroll over here, is it good enough? I don't know, you have to check everywhere. Oh, not up there, it's not good enough. The roto brush messed up there. But it's a process, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. All this stuff is a process. There are a lot of tools to use that are available to us. You should get out of, maybe you weren't ever in this habit, but you should get out of the habit of expecting one tool to do everything. Okay? We have specialized tools to do very niche things. It's our job as the artists here to figure out how to combine them in the most efficient, high quality way. Did a pretty good job down here. Still's not going to solve the problem with the mushiness from the H.264 file, but still, look, that was solid green. No key light, no color keying at all. I just turned it off here, but I'll delete it. Pretty cool, right? Next week, I'll show you the fusion thing, maybe at the beginning of class, and then we'll do some camera demos and talk about actually shooting on the green screen. Okay? So your assignment is to key something out, whether that's you shot on green screen or something else, that's fine. You should try to find something a little bit more challenging than YouTubing something on green screen and then keying something out that is on an artificially fake green screen. If you can't key this color out, this literally is the same value everywhere. If you can't key that out, then you're gonna have troubles. So challenge yourself a little bit. And then put it into Unreal, build a little world around it, or use the same world and tweak it a little bit. Okay? We are starting to ramp up the difficulty. Next week, it's not going to be a lot of software newness like this week was, but when we get into the camera tracking the following week, that will be a lot of stuff. Okay? Have a good week.